Jeff Lutz, we're all geniuses today. It's- it's-
It's a good
it's-
day.
no matter where we go, no matter who we talk to, no matter how much they didn't think we were yesterday, today we look like we're prescient.
Yeah. I mean, the reality is if you're talking about the fundamentals of the company and why it's different, why it's unique, why it's better, and where it's going, you've been right the whole time, as long as you've been identifying the real issues, and then the stock price eventually will catch up and do its thing.
That's what we've been saying all along. Now, of course, I'll say that right now, I could pick any stock price you want and justify it. If the stock went to 500 tomorrow, I could justify it as being worth 500 tomorrow. If it goes down to 295 tomorrow, I can justify the 295 because basically I think what all the rest, I mean, there's a fundamental part that you can, as Gary Black might say, that you can put on a spreadsheet and plan out for the next 10 years. And then there's the stuff that we just can't know, but that we can estimate and make prognostications about. And that part is, what would you call it? The optionality. I like to call it the optionality.
Yeah, I mean, the reality is everybody values the stock differently. There isn't some global standard for this is how you do it. And the biggest factor is time horizon. How long are you looking out, and what probabilities are you putting on things coming to fruition? And so, so yeah, and then there's just factors. There's catalysts. There's detractors, and obviously, having a government leaving office that did nothing but negatively pursue the company is a big, it's a big thing to kind of lift off the shoulders. But quite frankly, Tesla's executing. I go back to that Q3 2024, and they surprised everybody on gross margins. They surprised everybody on earnings. And those are the things that, I mean, I think they put a floor under it in terms of like, okay, got it. So there's fundamental execution happening here. And and these rate buy downs haven't had the impact that people thought. They're cutting costs more aggressively than other people. And even that, even people are trying to, there was a one time battery deal. You don't know. Did you actually look at their accounts receivable and their purchase orders for the company? You actually don't know that.
Yeah.
And but I like what we talk about on the show. We actually talk about the things that could span multiple quarters, and the fact that they have an event-driven COGS reduction program that they talk about in every earnings call. Not everybody picks up on it, but they tell you that they have a running list of things they're doing to take the cost down. We've talked about how much leverage they have in the industry, in the supply base, and we tell how they create that leverage with their low model count, their low part number count, and the localization of supply chain. So like all these fundamental things are coming to fruition. I think that put a floor under it, and quite frankly, it looks like what they're doing in the AI world is quite special. And in terms of like delivered AI solutions that consumers can actually use, this is way up there with, in terms of like actual useful real world AI.
And so Dan Ives, who just last week had raised his unofficial price target to 1.6 trillion, which would have been about $540 a share or something like that. A week later, today, raised his unofficial price target to 2 trillion, giving the AI side of things a 1 trillion valuation all by itself. So that was some evidence of what you're talking about.
Yeah. And Dan's usually ahead of this. There are a few analysts that like to get ahead of it. And what you've seen happen over the last couple of days, which have also been a catalyst to the stock, is a lot of analysts running after it and chasing it. And, again, that will continue because it comes down to what are these analysts factoring back to our original conversation? What's their time horizon and what are they factoring in? And everything is not going to pop off the Bloomberg terminal and tell you exactly what to do. You have to there has to be critical thinking involved, and you have to understand like what the company is building. Is it fundamentally distinguished, unique? And it turns out a lot of these decisions that Tesla have been making are being proven correct. And then you have GM, have a special call yesterday with analysts on changing their direction with Cruise,
Right.
and they directly cited increased competition in this robotaxi realm, and they also directly cited going to end on their choice for autonomy. And this is something I think people just need to understand. They think these big companies like have everything figured out and know what they're doing. And in reality, they don't. And the ones that actually have these things somewhat figured out with some variations, actually Tesla, he does these long-term master plans. And then inside of those master plans, which usually span 5 years or more, he has smaller plans inside of those master plans that the team is executing to. But the team can always fall back to that master plan. In these other companies, they've wrong strategies, and that's why you saw Ford exit Argo AI. Now you're seeing Cruise exit. You're starting seeing GM exit the Cruise robotaxi side. Now here's some insight. Who hired all those people at Cruise? Their former CEO, Kyle Vogt. What's Kyle Vogt saying on the outside? This GM leadership is a bunch of dummies. So the people that are working in Cruise right now inside of the GM umbrella, they're probably feeling like I got to get out of here at some point. And there's all these startups that'll take them to work on, autonomy and real world AI. So I think GM's in a lot bigger trouble than they're actually saying. And you should also realize that these companies many of them just don't know what they're doing. Why did Uber and Cruise make an autonomy robotaxi deal about 3 months ago? I think it was the end of August, beginning of September. Why did they do that?
Yeah.
You don't think Cruise, I don't think they knew within 90 days, like we have no plan to be able to do this and get the scale. And you don't think Uber had the ability to go in and vet and see what they're doing? It just tells you that there is a lot more going on under the covers in terms of just not knowing what they should be doing than these companies tend to project.
Yeah, and so figuring all that out, of course, is what we try to do on the show, and that's what the people in the community try to do, which gives
Yeah.
us a phenomenal segue into a great post today, I felt, by Emmet Peppers. And it's going to take a minute to go through this, but he says, new investment thesis for Tesla relating to AGI, ASI being applied to financial markets. Tesla stock all-time high ending 2024, fast approaching 1.5 trillion market cap, while traditional valuation metrics struggle to justify this seemingly high valuation. The rise of cutting-edge AGI technology could explain the bullish sentiment. He says, hear me out. It's plausible that leading hedge funds, known for leveraging the most advanced tech available to gain market advantage, read Flash Boys, the book as an example, are already utilizing new, better AGI than us, the general public, is fully aware of. This advanced AGI might be identifying Tesla with high probability as the future largest company in the world, forecasting its dominance across multiple industries and businesses and a far higher valuation within the next 5 years. When advanced AGI-driven investing strategies are in play, I would expect Tesla current valuation to just be the beginning. So then my question to you, Jeff, is not only do you think this is maybe happening, okay, but also if it is, wouldn't we be able to go to Grok and set up our own analysis, ask it to evaluate some technical traders and say which of these technical traders is right the most often, put all of their videos in for the last 3 years. And I mean, they have bigger computers, but the computers are getting really good at being able to sift through this stuff.
Yeah, I think what Emmett is saying is that on the client side that they have applications running to look at data a different way and get some competitive edge, and that data may be pointing. It's an interesting hypothesis, you know that things like that could be happening, but also I will take everybody back to November of 2021. I believe the PE over that year span leading up to it went from somewhere in in the 50 to 70 range all the way up to 255. And every tick, every PE tick above 50, you had everybody and their brother saying this is overvalued, this is crazy. And then you had people saying, well, hey, look, they're growing, 50 percent. There's real growth here, and EVs growing. Like there's something here. And so you had this great debate happening. And the point is at that point in time, nobody actually knew. Like PE is just one valuation metric.
Right.
It's just one metric. And Tesla's not making soap. They're not making Clorox. They're not making something, they're doing something that's so dynamic, that's so unique, that's not been done under one roof, quite frankly. And people are starting to understand that and starting to get it. And so what I would say is this could also be kind of a repricing event where again we're kind of in that mode of like what should the PE be? It's not clear. Nobody's ever built an end-to-end robotaxi network with millions of vehicles lighting up, with the ability for millions of vehicles to light up. Every one of these other existing robotaxi networks right now are very high upfront cost and very low volume, and very low available market. Like if you even look at the span of the number of streets and miles they're capable of driving, and then we had Homars do a comparison of one robotaxi going from point A to point B, and then the Tesla going from point A to point B, and the Tesla could take streets that the existing robotaxi couldn't, and it was it was like it cut more than half the time out of the trip. So there's more going on here, and I think you're starting to hear more and more of what we've been talking about over the last year, which was the fundamental model that Tesla has designed and selected and been executing over the last several years is a full-on global production model for autonomy that will launch at scale and be priced at a way at scale that will just blow everything away when it gets there. And I think just right now, a number of factors have been knocked over in terms of like the probability of that happening. It's becoming more and more probabilistic of it actually happening. So I think that's what's happening. I think the time horizon is shifting. It's the end of 2024. And now if you just do a 1 year and say, okay, what does the Bloomberg terminal tell me? Well, the Bloomberg terminal tells me this in terms of they've got new vehicles, they've got their COGS lower, they've got really competitive pricing, they're launching more things, there's Cybertruck in China, Model Q, all these different things floating out there. So you got that. And then inside of that time horizon, Tesla has publicly said that they're going to launch a robotaxi network in two of the biggest states in the United States. And I think these things are starting to get factored in. The other thing that's floating out there is there are reports of analysts that are seeing and viewing various things around Optimus and saying that it's further ahead than maybe even Tesla is telling us. And Tesla is showing us videos of it walking up and down hills outside without any vision input and be able to adjust itself and walk down. I can't even walk down that hill, I don't think, without falling over. And it can do that. So I think, and these aren't small industries. These are industries that could be like one industry changes transportation and one industry changes labor.
All labor.
So these aren't small things. Yeah.
All right, just for fun, I put together 10 items because everybody's always wanting to know what happened. Why did the stock go crazy? You've been talking about some of them, but I just want to, kind of quick, and then I put these 10 up, and one of my followers on X came up with another 10 that are really good. So we actually have 20 of these, which we have about a minute each on these, okay?
Okay. Rapid fire.
Rapid fire. So major increases in price targets from multiple respected companies. It started with Bank of America. I feel like that theirs was the first one. It was really the big one, the catalyst. What do you think?
Yeah, big one. And now Elon's worth more than Bank of America, I believe.
I saw that today. Number two, GM, we just talked about, capitulates on the automated ride hail. So one potential
interesting.
Gone.
I don't know what happened today, but their stock was up after hours. It's weird. The market has a much narrower window on them. It's just how many cars did you make? How many did shipped? What are your gross margins? you know what? All this stuff about EVs and autonomy, you've been just wasting money, basically, is what the market's saying. And so if you stop wasting money, the market's crediting them for, less $1 billion less of R&D burn. That's what happened.
Okay, number four, Cybertruck is going to China. Maybe.
Uh, yeah, maybe, and then probably not. Well, who knows? Maybe huge volumes. Oh yeah, Jim was down today. Interesting. So maybe the market did not like that. Um, yeah, Cybertruck going to China. It's going to happen. Remember, it's built in the U.S. right now and to be exported, and there's a tariff. It's not huge, but I mean I could probably see it getting caught up in a tariff war too. So don't start counting your chickens there.
Okay. We had excellent China numbers. I skipped over that one. Excellent China.
21 plus
7,
thousand.
20. Yeah. So that this time of year, we expect good China numbers, but that was kind of a blowaway number.
And remember, these are all vehicles over 30,000 US dollars in China. So they're blowing a lot of people away. It's what people don't forget, that people will show some raw number from BYD or some raw number from another company. I'm like, well, yeah, they're shipping $16,000 cars.
Right, exactly. Sometimes even
So
less.
even less, yeah.
So we had some fake news on Model Q, but there's still going to be a Model Q. How much do you think the fake news helped the stock this week?
I just think it called attention to page 10 in the earnings deck in the lower paragraph, which is reiterating everything that Tesla said. And all that Travis Axelrod did was reiterate that, yeah, what was nice. This is what I think a lot of people didn't pick up on. The earnings deck came out, whatever, October 21st, third week in October. Tesla says it's our plan. We're reiterating our plan first half of the year, lower price vehicles. What was nice about this coming out on December 9th or 10th or whatever was there's a conference, a Tesla representative speaks at that conference and reaffirms we're on plan. So there is some alpha there, which was 7, 8 weeks have passed by, and Tesla says they're still on the plan that they communicated 7 weeks ago. So that's good.
All right. So we have, I just call it Big Mo. We've got momentum. Momentum creates momentum.
Big deal. Yeah. Momentum is a big deal in trading and in a name like this, all the options activity. And when you've got positive momentum, it could be, quite powerful.
FSD version 13.2, the reports continue to be absolutely stunning with people trying to break it, trying to get it into trouble, and it's finding its way out.
Yeah. Very, very promising. And I think it's going to be the biggest takeaway I've seen from people is that it's more human. Besides the fact that it's one button from point to point now, which they've actually added features, which has been missing from FSD. You had to start FSD yourself and get it driving, and then you had to do the last few feet to get it into the spot you want. And now it's doing everything. And then the other thing is that it's just so confident in its moves, and it's so human and lifelike. And we're training on this new cluster, and we're not even using the full size parameter count. So we haven't even seen, V13 and kind of all of its glory yet. So yeah, it's a factor. And then this big, huge, holiday release is coming out, and it's got a lot of features in there.
Then we had multiple major whales and big time players coming to conviction. People who, Brad Gerstner is probably the most famous, one of the group, but we had multiple individuals like him who were like, well, I'm kind of in, or I like the stock or whatever. And all of a sudden they're like, oh my gosh, I got to jump on board.
Yeah. And there's a lot of people that buy content and insights from them. So on the one hand, you have these kind of sticks in the mud that have been, just saying the same thing over and over. Here's my spreadsheet, here's units, and Waymo's got or somebody's got cars out there already, and blah blah, like Bernstein, right? That's what they do. I think they still have a $125 price target on the company. And then you have these more forward thinking folks that actually understand how these AI training systems work, where Tesla's doing where the dollars, where are all these CapEx dollars going from Tesla? And I think people are just starting to fit the puzzle pieces together. And they own cars. They go out and drive it, and they go see it themselves. I've actually had a couple of them, they've reached out to me and said, hey, as soon as you get 13, we want to meet you and we want to drive with you in the car. So there's a lot of interest out there. And if you're kind of doing old school analysis, you're going to be left behind. I want to say one more thing. I think Simon Hale has brought this up back to your momentum question and back to, yeah, there's something happening in the last 10 minutes of trading every day
Yeah,
where you've seen this.
seen
There's
it.
a lot of volume
Yeah,
and there's a lot of activity. So there's something happening. It's happened now over the last couple of weeks. And there's a bunch of volume coming in, and you see the price where it's closing at highs. It's even making new highs in those final minutes.
right.
That is a significant sign of somebody kind of entering in a big way.
Gotcha. This is kind of half a joke, but Gary Black jumps on board with both feet. I mean, he also almost like we were talking about these other increases over the last week. Gary increased his price target and then again today jumped it up another 100. Again, not really an official price target, but he says the next stock, the next from here, we're going to 480.
Yeah, 478. Yeah, I don't know if that was a change or it was more of just guidance of where, he sees it just technically going. Yeah, I think you have a lot of people chasing. And by the way, you have a lot of less questioning the company on advertising, on,
Yeah.
what models they're building when. There's just a lot less of that going on.
Elon's politics.
It's interesting. Yeah, nobody's even talking about, Elon is literally glued to the president's side and nobody's talking about his, people not buying Teslas because of his politics. Nobody's even talking about that. So it's interesting. It's interesting what the stock price can do to people's brains.
Here's an interesting one that I don't think anybody's talking about at all. Elon just appears super confident about the robotaxi coming out this summer and Optimus in the thousands this next year. It isn't the kind of thing like in the past where he has come out and just said, okay, here's what my plan is, or here's what I think it is, and laughing about 2 weeks from now. It just seems to be it's kind of just coming off of him.
Yeah, I think what people hear some insights as we just saw version 13.2 a couple of days ago, Tesla basically saw that release probably at the end of September or the makings of that, like the output of the training model and maybe running it on a few vehicles, probably at some point in the second half of September. And then they packaged it up, cleaned it up for the We Robot event. And now we're seeing it. So what's Elon and the team seeing now? They're seeing something that's like 13.5, 6 with all this different stuff inside of it. And then, but they're talking to us in the present. So they're seeing many, many
Right.
periods of time out, and then they're applying scaling laws. We're on a different trajectory than we were before when doing heuristic code. We're just on and doing a rules-based approach. We're on a different trajectory now. I think it's still difficult to predict. These people I see putting 2035 and 2040 and 2032. I don't know how many AI projects they've shipped. I'm not putting a date. And I'm also not, I don't necessarily agree with everything the company says, but when I see the directors of Autopilot providing guidance and I see what they've delivered over the last year, I'm more inclined to believe them than look at some random FSD tracker or listen to some random person on the internet. Sorry.
Yeah, so Neil Henderson is the follower who came back and gave his list. He says number one, he says that you missed, Randy, was fear of missing out, which is kind of like momentum, but it's different than momentum.
Yeah, there's FOMO happening. If people see Elon, in the White House, they see Cybertrucks, they see what's, they maybe even be seeing some of the, full self-driving. People are seeing some of the stuff come together and they see the stock price just moving rapidly and you'll have FOMO.
The next one he mentions is a short squeeze. So it is now, according to Grok, I checked, Tesla is back as the number one option play right now, and also is up there in the squeezes again. I mean, in the shorts.
Yeah, and we actually don't. I mean, we can. I mean, I guess in a couple weeks in arrears, we can see net positions of major firms, but we don't, it's hard to know how much betting is actually happening against the company in terms of options. I don't know how people think they know this. I think it could be tremendous. I just think you go back to your original comment of looking at the volume of options, and then you could probably say that there's a lot happening on both sides of that. And yeah, and that's going to drive price action.
Yeah. Gamma squeeze.
I'm not big into these terms, but what I'll say is forever, for the last 3 years, the stock's been used as a call, covered call, piggy bank.
Right.
It's been used a number of different ways. And if you try to write covered calls at 350 because you thought there was some temporary top, you got your shares called away. If you tried to write them at 400 because you thought that was it, you got them called away. So that's probably having an impact as well.
Number four, he says, is index funds rebalance, which happens, I guess, between now and the end of the year. I'm not sure which day.
Yeah, I mean, look at what where Tesla was. I don't know if it's in the 220 to 240 range at the end of September. And what index fund, it may be, who knows? It may be double that at the end of December. Who knows like where it's going to be. The point is it's up considerably.
Right.
And there's a difference between a mutual fund and an index fund in terms of visibility. But there is going to be this thing called window dressing, which is if you weren't in the name and your clients don't have that, necessarily day-to-day trade visibility, they just want to look at the end and say, well, hey, was this stock in your portfolio? And it did amazingly well. Did we have it in our portfolio or not? So that's that window dressing concept. So I think I call this stuff mechanical stuff happening in the market.
Mhm.
And we had bad mechanical stuff happening for us in the years past. If you remember, with the stock was progressively going down in a year, then you'd have people would use it for tax loss selling.
Right. Right.
And then people were getting margin called and they were mechanically selling there. They were just getting triggered. And now we have the good side of that. This is probably not a stock that's going to be targeted a lot for tax loss selling. Maybe people will use some of the gains, but in general, not. And certainly people aren't getting margin called unless they were short, which if they're short, then they're buying the stock.
Right.
And then you're going to have the window dressing. You're not going to window dress a stock that was a loser. In fact, you're going to dump it if it was a loser. So now you're going to have the institution on the other side of that adding for window dressing to say, hey, this thing was in our portfolio at some point in the quarter.
I don't spend very much time looking at technical analysts, but I've tripped across a few just as I go, through all my research every day. And almost every technical analyst that I look at right now has got Tesla going straight up. So he's saying technical analysts and algorithmic trading right now could also be just giving it another boost.
Yeah, as soon as we start, closing at these levels and creating um, levels of resistance below where we are, it starts getting really nutty. I'm not one to, I don't know. I really want to focus on the fundamentals of the company. And if it's robo taxis in the second half of the year, and if whether that's September or November, whether it's July or December, as long as these things are hard to predict, but as long as something is happening favorable in that range of time, it's going to be received well. And people start seeing more and more optimists working in a factory, it's going to be received very well. I want to remind people one thing about Optimus. Optimus is always viewed as this labor replacement thing, which just has this mega trillion TAM. But what a lot of people understand is there's a lot of conventional line robotics that are purchased that can also be replaced by Optimus now. If they get the speed right, we saw the speed at which it's catching that tennis ball. If they get the speed right on this thing is going to also replace conventional automation and robotics online. So you're not only have this labor efficiency going through the roof and going vertical, you may have a capital efficiency thing going through the roof now where there's CapEx you used to buy. You don't want to have to buy anymore. You can just have a fungible Optimus going between. So it's mind boggling when you think about it. I don't think a lot of people model it that way either.
Yeah. And then the next one, number seven for him, is one that I see happening. And I've reported on this over the last 2 years. Right now, we're seeing a media and news shift where there's so much good news about Tesla that it's kind of wiping out the bad news. And even with regard to Elon, as we pointed out, he's more or less in the good news category right now, where most of the time the news is running 80% against him. So even that shift I think would impact people's thinking with regard to their stock picking.
Yeah, and the other thing is you have this thing now where everybody's like, "Where's the PR? What's happening?" Well, now you have this thing called community notes, and as soon as there's some weird bad article that comes up, people post it on X, and they say, "Well, no, here are the facts that are wrong in this article." So there's still going to be targets. Remember, I had a writer for one of the major firms that covers Tesla. That's, big company like in the Reuters realm. I had a writer tell me that if they get Tesla in the title of a publication of an article, it literally gets 1,000x more clicks than if they had something like a a Hyundai or BYD or something else in there. So they always try to find a way to wedge the word Tesla or Elon in, and if they can have some sort of negative tinge or some sort of massively favorable one or something negative, they're gonna that's how, right, it's a 4 clicks business right now.
Right. Yeah. There's no question that, I mean, even if people look at my title, they're going to see that it's always starts with Tesla stock. I don't care what else I say in the title. The first two words are Tesla stock. So, and there's a reason for that. And yeah, so all these people do the same thing. And obviously negative sometimes, if it's negative, sometimes that's going to be a bigger click. But good positive news on a company, for instance, also does sell. In fact, my
A
whole
lot of people interested in
my whole
There's a
channel is
lot of
based
people
on that.
interested. Yeah, Randy. I mean, and that will grow because there's probably, now that the stock is at an all-time high, there's probably more people owning this stock than ever, and they're going to want to seek out information on it.
Yep, yep. Number 8, he says, is regulatory changes. I think that's one we're really, really well aware of, is that not only is the government changing in the US, which is going to be favorable, you mentioned a few minutes ago, in terms of taking away the negative, but there's also the implication that there's going to be positive opportunities because of NISTA and other things that will help with the robotaxi. But there's
Right.
also the UN, the EU, and the China regulations that are all three supposed to be coming soon.
Yeah, and there's risk in some of that. I mean, there's obviously going to be tension between everywhere right now with what's going on from a tariff perspective. But I actually think Elon is going to be used, not used in a bad way, but used as in to help drive some of the negotiations, because what these other countries need is they need access to technology, but there's a price to pay for that. So I think what Trump and the organization are trying to do is they're trying to make sure that we have a fair deal between our country and their country, and we're not being taken advantage of. So now, if you insert this technologist into that conversation and say, look, we actually have access to technology that you can't or won't get, and maybe all of a sudden it starts to become part of the deal here. I mean, there's a major thing happening right now with China and India in terms of EV manufacturing footprint, and Tesla's right in the middle of that. And there's some pretty prominent people that have seen like what's happened in terms of like Tesla going out, going, or is Elon going to India? Is he not going to India? Some of the, China getting in the middle of that, and Tesla's is that, I don't want to call them a pawn. They're a major figure in the middle of that, driving that direction. So Tesla's in a good spot. It's also in a precarious spot where it can be the subject of a lot of conversations and a lot of back and forths. So I think you're going to see a lot of it's be a lot of headline risk per se, but at the end of the day, Tesla has tremendous leverage. The United States has tremendous leverage.
He calls number 9 global economic factors like upcoming lower interest rates, inflation being maybe being tamed, etc.
Moderating.
I would add to that just the general optimism. The small businesses came out with a big leap in optimism. The what do you call it? Consumer optimism. Both results there were showing tremendous optimism, and everybody's making it very clear that this optimism is coming about because of the Trump administration coming in. So all of that, and with Elon attached and associated with the Trump administration, I would think that this would be in the back of people's minds, or maybe even in the forefront.
And a very strong November jobs report too.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. And then finally, competitor actions. Lots of competitor problems out there.
Capitulation.
Capitulation, companies going away,
Yeah.
companies that look like they're going to go away, situations. I mean, there's a few that are doing well, the BYDs of the world, maybe the Geelys, maybe even Rivian, looking like it might do okay, but so many, Volkswagen and BMW, just go down the list and not looking
Well,
good.
we know what they're we know we've been talking about this for 2 years. We actually don't know how some of the others are actually doing because like there's things happening in China. We're seeing that they're extending their
Yes.
payment terms days significantly, to 10 months. It's unheard of. You're supposed to be paying your suppliers within, 2 months, basically. And China has always been a little bit longer than that. We understand there's something structurally different, there's subsidies and so forth. But that extension of payment terms as they're trying to expand globally tells me that they have a cash problem domestically and they have a cash problem as they go and export and their payment if they don't have the right terms with some of these partners in other countries, they could be getting stretched on their payment days, running into a cash problem, and now they're telling their suppliers they're going to have to pay longer to pay them. And I don't think I haven't even done a good job of drawing this point to close. Tesla's actually taken their payment days down successfully over the last 3 years, and now even Grace Tao in China said they're below. There was publicly about 112 days last year. Now they say they're at 90 or below. When you're doing that, it means Tesla is managing their cash very well. If they can take their payment term days down with suppliers, that is actually used as a negotiating tool to take price down. Because now you can go to your suppliers and say, I was paying you at this many days before, and now I'm actually, if you look at the receipts, I'm paying you faster. I want more price. I want more price down because you're getting paid. That's just one of the terms in the negotiation. There's inventory terms, there's indemnification terms on quality, and there's payment days. It's just one of the terms. People think the only thing we negotiate with suppliers on is cost, but payment terms is a big thing. If Tesla's going in a positive, favorable direction, they can actually use that on suppliers to leverage and take costs down.
Yeah, and talking about, I hadn't thought of it until this very moment, but when you look at BYD, and one of their strengths, I think, is the number of vehicles that they've been able to put out there to test niches and figure out what's going to work and what's going to work where. But on the other side of the coin, not only does that, as you've pointed out so many times, all of those vehicles means that they're not getting anywhere close to the margins they could get if they were getting bigger run
Correct.
rates on all those vehicles. But they're also shipping these vehicles all over the world, and they're starting to set up little factories all over the world. All of that has got to be really hitting their cash.
It is. And if those things don't have a path to break even and become accretive, that's where you could see when I've seen this happen before in tech and in businesses where you look at a company and say, wow, they're growing their volume. This is great. And all of a sudden they just spiral out of control. They run out of cash and they're like, oh my God, I have busted unit economics now. This doesn't work. And then they have to just start shutting things down rapidly. So look out. I think 2025 is going to be somewhat disruptive. I'm not saying BYD is going out of business. I'm just saying that in general in China, besides Tesla, besides Li Auto, and maybe besides Xiaomi, which I think is the real sleeper in China, a lot of the other players have been extending their payment terms. I think they're running into cash problems. We'll see what happens.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, that was it. We did them. We got it done. How did we do that? We got it done in
It's
your
a good
time.
list.
It is a good list. Isn't that a good list? Anyway, I'm going to let you loose because I know you've got someplace to go immediately. So as
Yeah.
always, Jeff, we're so thrilled to have you on and helping us to get through all these kinds of
Yeah.
analysis.
Thank you, Randy. You as well.
All right. Okay. Bye for now.
Take care. Bye.
All right. So Jeff had he had one before us and another one after. So busy guy. But that I really enjoyed that. I hope you did. Let's go ahead and take a look at the numbers because last time I checked, Tesla was continuing to have that FOMO and or that moto that that moto that mo after hours, but let's take a look. So it was up 23.78 today, 23.78 to 424.77 by the end of the day. And it's up another $4.53 after hours at 429.30. Now you want to put that in the context of some of the some of the posts that I put on X today where I've said, no, I think we're done. I think we're over. I think there's not, this it can't go any higher. Well, it kept on going higher, kept on going higher. I actually pointed out that I sold some of my leaps today. Actually, I sold all my leaps today. And I sold them at 416, 417. So, I left money on the table. But part of my business philosophy, my stock trading philosophy is never cry over a profit. I had 100% profit in those leaps in what, 5 weeks, 4 weeks, something like that. So I can't complain about my decision to get out. I can't also complain because I might still be able to get back in at 410 because, folks, there's no guarantee that because we're at 430 today, we're not going back to 401 tomorrow. If it can go up 27, 28 points in a day, it can go down 28 points in a day. This is the nature of the beast, and it's been the nature of Tesla all along. So don't get caught up. Make sure this is not investment advice; it's life advice. Okay, so that's what happened with Tesla today. Let's take a look here. The Dow was down in this phenomenal day when the NASDAQ was up 347, the Dow was down 99. So go figure. S&P was up 49. We'll take a look at where all of those are right now. But last time I checked, there was not a lot of action going on in the equities. But we'll see. It could have all changed by now. On a percentage basis, that would be the Dow was down 22.22. I'm sorry. NASDAQ was up 1.77. The S&P was up 0.82. And of course, a lot of that NASDAQ action was because of Tesla, but you had Google up 5.46%. You had Amazon up 2.32. You had Meta up 2%. You had Microsoft up 1%, and you had NVIDIA returning to the positive, to the green, up 3.14. So it was a very, very good day across the board for all of those Magnificent Seven stocks. And as I mentioned this morning, if you were watching, ARK did well today. PayPal and Square did well, but actually the rest of the Cathie Woods, not so much. All right, let's go ahead and take a look at what is happening with the bonds. And you've got the bonds. I'm just hit that wrong. Let me do that again. You got the bonds actually were up today, continuing up a little bit, only 0.2%, but we're at 4.273. As I mentioned, I'm going to mention this again. I mentioned it this morning. This is telling me that the bonds do not believe that inflation is over. Now, they could be wrong. In long term, I do believe that they are wrong. I went into a lot of detail on that this morning. You want to go back and look. But they're saying that at least for now, that inflation is not killed. Inflation is still a problem. And so you're sitting here looking at the 10-year at 4.275. That means mortgages are going to stay up because that's where the mortgage gets set. You got the 2-year is up also 0.2 of a basis point. And you've got the 1 month is up 1.5 basis points at 4.391. So that's what's happening with the bonds tonight. You've got oil basically unchanged in the pre-market, but you did during the day, in the regular trading today, you had oil in Texas go over $70 a barrel. That is not expected because in general, what we're hearing is, other than the fact that OPEC cut, what they're going to be doing, no, I'm sorry, they didn't cut. What they said was they're seeing a reduction in demand going into next year, or a reduction in the increase in demand. I don't know that they have changed their expectations. There's a headline here that does say that the European Union has agreed to further sanctions against Russian oil flows. So that could be, but it's only up another buck or two. So it's not a bunch. Natural gas, which was up very strongly earlier today, is now off 1% in the pre-market. Gold, which was also up strongly, looking very close to all-time highs, but is now down 0.04% in the pre-market. Silver, same thing. At 32.9, was getting close to that 34 again, and it is down a little bit, 0.2%. Copper sitting where it's been, around 4.26. And you've got the dollar mixed again, Overall, up a little. China is considering letting the yuan weaken. Crypto up Bitcoin up 4,611. That is 4.81% today at 101,000. The high, I think, was around 104. We'll see which way it's going to attack all of that next time. All right, so a little bit more action in the equities in the pre-market. The NASDAQ is down, NASDAQ is down 40 or 0.18%. S&P is down 8 or 0.13%, and the Dow down 71 or 0.16%. So interestingly, all three of them down around 0.15%, very, very close. Lately, they're seemingly like doing all kinds of different things at the same time, but overall, the equities going down in the pre-market. All right. What else have we got left? Okay, here we got some housekeeping. First of all, we have got, and I'll go back and look at Tesla one more time. Oh, yeah, okay. Just seeing if there's still a market. So what we've got is later tonight, Robert Scobel will be on. And it's a great show. We're going to be talking a lot about Tesla, a lot about Optimus, new stuff you haven't heard yet, because Robert comes at it from a completely different direction. You know, he's a blogger, famous technical, does all this tech stuff. And we talk a lot about the stuff that Tesla's doing in the tech world, but we also talk about some of the biggest things that he's seeing right now in the tech world that are coming our way and not too distant future. And then tomorrow, regular programming tomorrow. I'm going to continue to push you to go back and look at the show last night, if you haven't already looked at it, last night with Nicholas Gibbs. You know how smart he is, and you know he comes at things in a very different way. So I'm going to put that card up there in case you want to go back and check that out. Okay, finally, if another nice order from Brian H. today. Thank you very much, Brian H. I think it was another 4. And here you go. I mean, plenty of time to order. You still got lots and lots of time to get your Cybertruck. Look at how that looks in the case. Is that gorgeous? I mean, holy mackerel. It looks like a piece of jewelry. Okay, you know what the deal is. 25 for 1, 45 for 2, 65 for 3, 80 for 4, and then 20 times whatever. $20 times 5, times 6, times 7, times 20. We have had one order this season for 20, which will be $400. Just send your $400 to paypal.me/Randy Kirk, or go down below. You can check out the details in the description down below. You can also send money to PayPal. Have you made a lot of money on Tesla this year? Is any of the money that you've made this year on Tesla been because of my direction, some of the information you learned on the channel, something that you got inspired because of the channel? Not by me, by my guests, by all these people that I bring on. If you've made, $20 extra last year, $3 a month would be $36 a year. Maybe you could just join at the $3 level. Maybe you've made a lot of money. Maybe you feel like, boy, Randy, I think I've probably made, a couple of $100. Well, then you could get at the $10 level, $10 a month. I've got people at the $50 level that are paying, $50 a month to support the channel. You could be one of those. All right, I'm going to leave it go. Let's go back. One last look at where Tesla is, because on the one hand, I'm thrilled that it's up as much as it is. On the other hand, I want it to come back down to 410 so that I can put my leaps back on lower than I got out of them. But if I don't, one of my other philosophies you may have heard me say is you always have to look when you're trading. You always have to, not for the long term, you can buy whatever price you want to for the long term. But if you're trading, you always have to look at every trade as if you've never traded before. So it doesn't matter that it went up 15 or 12 or whatever in between my sell and my next buy. You look at the new trade and you go, is this a good time to make this trade at this time? Is this smart? That's it. Okay. See, was that worth anything? $3 a month. Okay, wait a minute. So Tesla in the after hours at this point is at 429.36. Who knew? Nobody predicted. The closest would be Brian Wong. He said it'd be 450 by the end of the month. Nobody believed that. And I still don't believe that. Brian, you're going to be wrong on that one. We'll see. But Brian's going to be on Friday at roughly 7:45 at night. Brian will be on Friday, and he's going to give his complete package of predictions with regard to the upcoming year. You don't want to miss that one. We're just going to keep on giving you lots and lots of value. It's been great talking to you.